you are not expected to gather information, but you are expected to generate information, and you're expected to organize the information that you would have generated such that it is fit, your writing or your essay is fit for purpose. It addresses the topic, and it follows it adheres to the requirements of academic writing. In other words, there are features that are going to dominate in your essay next in the few weeks to come. Which features will dominate in your essay in the next few weeks to come? Which academic writing features? Obviously, evidence will not predominate because you are not gathering information from research material. What you are doing, you are actually generating information by yourself. All right? You're generating information based on your knowledge of current affairs. You know, I spoke earlier in our earlier classes about getting ourselves glued to what's going on in our country and in the world, of course. You know, being glued up on what is going on around us, so that should we get any topic that really relates to the current affairs, we are able to we find the topic relatable. So evidence as such the emphasis may not be on you providing research evidence in an exam, just giving you tips. However, the paragraphs, especially the introduction, body, and concluding paragraphs, they still need to have the feature of structure, and that's part of your academic writing feature, structure. This before you on your screen is the structure of an introduction. We dealt with this structure in our last meeting, where we said that an introduction should have evidence of these points that we have here, that it should have a thesis statement, and in the presentation, of course, that we heard feedback that I had from students, there was evidence in some of your work that there was thesis statements. Students were able to recognize that their essay needed to have a thesis, and their introduction needed to have a thesis statement, and they included it in their introduction. Thesis statement, we said last time, consists of topic and controlling idea. All right. If it were an argumentative essay, it would be the topic and where the student stands on the topic, or position or line of argument that the student would take in the body of the essay. What about expository essay? How would we craft or write a thesis statement for an expository essay? We were dealing with that last week. We said it would consist in the topic itself, rephrased, of course, and it will also consist in the controlling idea. In other words, I've shown you the examples last time, and there was a student, I think it was Innocent, who presented. I really liked that presentation because it actually showed a clear understanding of how to write a thesis statement. So that's part of the structure. And I saw there was a question, I think, in the group where students would ask, should I start with a thesis statement, or should I end with a thesis statement, or should I have the thesis somewhere in the middle of the introduction? The positioning of the thesis statement is not very it is necessary to have a thesis statement. Whether I begin my introduction with it or I end my introduction with it, it is not a structural problem where I place the thesis statement. It's not a structural problem in terms of the introduction structure. I want to see it either in the beginning of your introduction or right at the end of your introduction. Some students would prefer to place it right at the end of their introduction. Right, that is number one. I saw that in Innocent's introduction, that there was evidence of thesis statement there. But the other thing that we have to include in an introduction is that it should provide, if we like, the reader with information that summarizes the body of your essay. In other words, areas of focus, points or ideas that would form the ideas that would form the main points of the essay itself. Some students would say, I would also like to include background information and definition in my introduction. All right, that's fine. You can, if you don't have background information, you may provide definitions of keywords that you find that are necessary to be defined from the topic. But these things need to be there. One, thesis statement. It's my choice to decide whether I include a definition of key concepts to at least make the reader aware of my working definition of concepts or keywords that they may have included in the topic itself, by working definition of that. Then secondly, if I do not provide definitions, I might provide historical background on the topic itself. All right, historical background information on the topic itself. If I'm not, or I can actually do both of them. I could have background information and definition included in the introduction. And lastly, if you like, this would be then the summary of ideas that students would have, like these, like you saw last time when we had a class. The student had gone with the summary of ideas, but they didn't really dwell much on definitions. They didn't really provide definitions. I think the sample introduction was given to the students, and I want to go back to that slide even this evening, so that we reconnect ourselves with what was discussed last time. So that's the introduction, and I want us to be very sure that we can really write an introduction that is fit for purpose, an introduction that serves the purpose. Unless we are able to do that, we're going to struggle in the exam. We are really, really going to struggle in the exam. Unless we are able to write an introduction that addresses the topic and has all these points that I am putting to you in this slide, then the introduction is going to struggle. And when the introduction struggles, then the whole essay struggles. You remember with my presentation on structure as part of the academic writing features, I said that you need to produce at least an essay that looks more like a burger. You know, I used that analogy to try and sort of clarify how to structure your essay. You see, the burger, the top bar is your introduction, the bottom would be, and the whole would be a conclusion, and the whole idea there is the two, which are very, very similar, hold the body together. Right, so I satisfied myself that students can do an introduction by themselves now and independently. If there are students who still struggle with this, I really want to know that there is a big struggle with writing an introduction, and we see what we can do before students write exams, either 13, 15. I'm sure I saw 2 dates in the group. Okay, that is the last point in terms of writing an introduction. So let me show you once again the sample introduction that we worked with last time. This is the sample, and we further, this was the sample, and this is work by students, and this is the introduction based on the topic that we're working with. Of course, this topic is a topic that covers different things. You know, if the student different areas of social ills in society, illiteracy, HIV/AIDS. So it's a fair topic to give to students, because you do not want to limit students to just one aspect, which students student might know little about. But you say, if you're not strong on crime in terms of much more on teenage pregnancy, so it gives you that wide choice. So it's a fair topic, and I think topics would more or less be like that, where students are given a broad spectrum to work with in their essay. And so in our analysis, we came to this. We said that it uses the topic and controlling idea, like you see here in the thesis statement, and we see it's there, it's given. I indicated in my analysis of the student's introduction that this would be the topic, reference to the topic. It might be that the student rephrases the topic by rephrasing. It doesn't change the topic, but he might use sort of different words to capture the topic. The idea there as well provided. You see, social maladies, I've said this last time, are indeed fundamental threats to the economic and social development of South Africa. So that's the discussion position that the student would be taking in the essay itself. And we said that there isn't very clear background information or historical information on the words that the student has chosen to elucidate in the essay itself. He's not giving us historical background on crime, though he works with crime in the essay. He's not giving us historical background on teenage pregnancy, although he works with teenage pregnancy in the essay. Neither does the crime definition of teenage pregnancy as such. But what does the student do? Here, the student is focusing the reader's attention on this, the last point. If you look at the last point, it says, a good introduction gives the reader information that summarizes the body of the essay. In other words, having read that, I should know what to expect when I'm reading the essay. And the student does that. You can see here, information summarizes the body of your essay and gives the reader a way to predict, that's the word, predict the structure of the essay as a whole. So he says here in this summary, that helps me as the reader to predict what to expect in the body of the essay. He says that South Africa is plagued by corruption. This relates to the topic. It is plagued by corruption, violent crimes such as based violence and murder. So corruption and violent crime is part of expanding on ideas that get in body of the essay. Right. Secondly, the student has his focus or her focus on teenage pregnancy. And in exploring teenage pregnancy, the student would look into school-going girls falling pregnant, and he says such maladies pose a serious threat to the economic or rather social fabric of the South African society, of South Africa as a country that he has chosen. Right. Now, that's the introduction. It's ideal introduction. It might not be picture perfect introduction, but it really covers the ground that you would like to see. What would I give a student if they give me an introduction like this? A beautiful introduction to me is very clear. It begins with a topic sentence. Pardon me. It begins with the thesis statement. It really gives me as the reader an idea of what to expect in the body of the essay. Summary of those. He hasn't defined crime. He hasn't defined teenage pregnancy. Fine, but I do know what to expect as the reader in the body of the essay itself. So I would give you time now to. Why am I placing so much emphasis on introduction? It is where we begin. It's where we create the first impression. And so a very good introduction creates a very positive impression. And it says to the reader, you know, go on, read the, sorry, let me just turn the volume down here. It says to the reader, you can actually go on and read and get more details. Right, that's number one, introduction. And what I also want us to do as we engage or as we work with the introduction is to use that platform for practice. We still have time, but less than 10 days, I suppose, or even more. You still have time. Put something there. Listen to the voices that very critical, but we want constructive criticism, and we want to create safety nets on the group, you know, a non-judgmental group, understanding that this is a learning platform, and that there wouldn't be any anxiety in terms of participating on the platform. The idea there is to really create that safety net. How do each individual participant create the safety net? You really want to, you know, when we assess students' work, the best way to create safety net on a platform like a WhatsApp group, it's look at the positive first, okay? Look at the positive in the student's introduction. I mean, you would be really judging or using your checklist to judge the introduction that they post, because we don't want it to end here. We want it to move further and beyond this forum, where students will engage with it, apply, and not just hold it in their heads and say, okay, I know it and I'm going to do it. There are students who would have it, they would have been exposed to it previously and they know how to do it. And we would like them to engage much more actively and share their ideas with the rest on the group. Do not assume that all students are empowered in terms of academic writing. We're grappling with this, and we're trying to make breakthroughs. And so your contribution as one who has strengths in this area would really make a positive impact in other students' learning. But you start by identifying what is positive in students' work, or rather introduction. You start with positive comment based on evidence students provide, and then you can then critique the work and say this and that may need to be relooked, okay? And we're careful in our word choice. Remember, we are very constructive. We are constructing learning here. And so we are careful in our word choice. And lastly, following the critical comments would be then a positive comment that we end our commentary with. So it's positive note of what the student has written, a critical note of the student's introduction, a critical, and also a positive. So you want to start positive and couch your criticism within a because we don't want students to really isolate themselves from the discussion. And the best way to do it is to really encourage and say encouraging comments, but not neglecting the area that needs development. All right. You start with a positive, even if it's just the vocabulary that is used. You can comment on that vocabulary that students has actually included, but then you then critique whichever area that needs to be critiqued, and then following that you end with a positive commentary as well on students' work. You need to look and find something positive. There is something positive that you will find. Look and find it. Don't just focus on what seemed to be very negative and start with negative and end with negative. You do not know what that does to the students. The student might really feel like it's not doable, it's not possible, I will never get it right. You want to really get them on and get them to comment, get them to want to do more. And I would really like to appreciate Kovile's comments. I read through all of them on the group. They're very, very constructive, very, very encouraging, very, very much non-judgmental. Essentially just focusing on areas that students need to improve on, and very, very, which word am I looking for? Encouraging, you know, even when the student realizes their the problems in their work, they still feel good about it. That's the idea when we engage in these discussions on the group. So post it. And by the way, this is not for marks, it's just for learning, and use that platform constructively for that purpose. And once you have done that, you say, according to the checklist, what is your checklist? Thesis statement would be one. Inclusion of necessary or background information, if not definitions. Some students may not, others may. And also, introduction summarizes body of essay, gives the reader a way of predicting structure of the essay as a whole. Now, that would be your checklist. Does it do that? Does it do you tick in the blocks whether this has been done or not? Okay, and so we are able to say, okay, it is done. And of course, you're going to have problems in some instances with grammar, but if we are able to get the structure right, if we're able to get the ideas in, then we can start working on revision of grammar and say, if you could learn this or learn that in the sentence construction, but the idea is there. The idea is there. The structure is there, and the ideas can be expressed in the language that is not grammatically accurate, but the fact that there is content in terms of ideas that I should anticipate, or in the body of the essay itself, that at least gives me a sense of comfort. And we can now work on the next challenge, that being grammatical constructions in terms of the sentence construction. So this is the challenge, and it would require that you engage. Can we put a question on the group and say, let's do practice? And someone would put an introduction, be original, and write as a form of preparation towards the exam. And I expect students peer kind of review. I expect peer kind of comments on this. It's like peer assessment of sort, but you have a way of assessing the work. What is the way? You create a checklist here, a checklist that says thesis statement, yes or no. You have a column for that, for yes or no, and you say, use that as perhaps a starting point to comment on students' work, and try to be very positive, and try also to be critical as well, so that you generate that confidence in the process. Okay, so I would like to leave it there with regard to the introduction. I think if you get it right, then you should go right in the exam. It's part of your module, really, writing a very good introduction in preparation for the exam. I've dealt so much on it. Look at this student. This is a draft introduction. It's a draft, of course. A draft, remember, we're working with, in the writing wheel, we're working with planning, and then following planning, we have in the writing wheel, pre-writing activities such as working with the topic, analyzing it, and also generating ideas and organizing those ideas. That's pre-writing activity. But then following that, we said we're doing what? We're drafting. So we have seen an introduction that the student has written. We analyzed it. It has these features that we are, rather these aspects that or points that we're looking for in the introduction. Although not comprehensively, but at least it is something that is very, very, very close to what we are really looking for. And I also like to commend the student Innocent last week when he read out his introduction, or he actually wrote something. I think when I read it, it was something very, very good to read, Innocent. So thanks for that. Right. So it doesn't stop here. It should go on and on and on and on and on, students. Let's look at student A draft introduction. I'm not sure what this student was working with. This student was working with the same topic of social maladies and the impact thereof on the economy of a country of your choice. And I'm not sure what this student's country of choice. Now, this is a student who had registered for the same module. And this is what they write. In simple terms, I'm reading. I would define, now look at this student, I would define teenage pregnancy as a result when a girl who under the age of 20 who already experiences periods, not on any contraceptives method, and has unprotected sexual intercourse with a male figure. So the student tries to define teenage pregnancy and what causes it, right? Then he goes on. Previously, generations before ours had children at early ages, a lot of children. Now he's trying to give some background information. Previously, that's historical background. Previously, generations before us had children at early ages, a lot of children. So I'm getting a sense the student has an idea where they're going with this. All right. Circumstances were different then. That is, there were child marriages. Is this part of background on teenage pregnancy? Like some historical background as to how this has developed? Circumstances were different then. There were child marriages. The lifestyle was cheaper then, and it was expected of women to become housewives. Things are different now, but still teenage pregnancy is rapidly growing. Right. Look, I'm getting a sense this student, working with this student's introduction, that the student has applied the requirements to some extent. All right, not fully. The student has tried, as we see, to define what teenage pregnancy is. All right, we give them credit for that because we do provide definitions in the introduction. The student has tried to give some historical background or background information on teenage pregnancy. Okay, he does that. He does that. Previously, generations, etc. And he goes on. Circumstances different. There were child marriages. The lifestyle was cheaper then. It was expected of women to become housewives. That's background information. Things are different now, but still there's teenage. That's background sort of information that students provide on teenage pregnancy. All right, to some extent, there is an attempt at addressing the topic, and there is an attempt at writing a proper introduction. There is an attempt. He is not providing all that you would expect, especially on the topic discussing social maladies as of your choice. But he chooses one, that is teenage pregnancy. He neglects to choose the other. And the student then provides the definition and historical background, and he leaves it at that. You see, so when I look at this introduction, I see it's missing things such as thesis statement. It misses that. It doesn't have it. Okay, and it you do get a sense that the student intends to write on teenage pregnancy in the body of the essay. You do get a sense, but you're not actually sure how the student is going to tackle this. Okay, but also when you look at the intro, you find that the student neglects to include the other social malady, which was a requirement of the topic. So we can deduce from this that the student might have not done thorough topic analysis, but I do get a sense, I do get a sense that the student is intending to do something around teenage pregnancy, which is half of the work that is expected of the student, because there is another part that needs to also be covered. But again, after reading this, I'm not sure if the student is going to, I'm not sure what to expect really in the body in relation to the topic, because the topic says, how does this impact the economic development of a country of your choice? But you don't get the sense that the student will really get into that aspect. in their discussion, where they would discuss the social malady itself and how it impacts on the economic development. Right, so you don't get that from the introduction, and we hope that this would be done. But I can tell you, this is a measure of the student thinking, the introduction. From the introduction, you can already, as the reader or marker, know that this student is not going to be, this essay is not going to be sufficiently addressing what is expected of this, because you can tell from the introduction itself. And so normally what markers would do, they would read the introduction and jump to the conclusion. And from there, you pretty much know what in the rubric, what mark you should actually give the students, you know, from just reading that, because it gives you really a very, very good sense of where the student is going with it, because that's where the impression is laid in the introduction. And so the first impression lasts long. So we want to do it quite well. So I think student A draft introduction, it is exactly that. It is a draft. It needs to be reworked, you see. But the other aspect to it, notice that the student is not using referencing. Why? In an exam, you're not expected really to be providing that, because it's exam. Because how do I expect that unless you know that you will get it right and the reference would be right and you'd know the year and all of that would be accurate? Yes, you can. It's not like something that we would say we do not want to see. It's a bonus if a student would include that, and we would be excited to see that as well in their work. But it's still an introduction. It's not addressing all the elements that you would like it to address. So look at the same. This is the student. I expect you to do the same. Imagine yourself participating in the group and you write this. And after writing this, you send it on the group. And it's a draft, by the way. That word is very important, draft. Okay, remember, we cannot say first draft, second draft, and third draft. Every work that is draft, it means it still needs to be revised or edited, is a draft. So I come across students writing where they say first and second draft. No, when is it coming out of the draft phase? It should come out of the draft phase. You see the writing wheel, it's planning, it's pre-writing activities, it's drafting, it's then revising the final, or rather revising the draft, and rather editing as well, and all of those, editing the draft so that you are able to rewrite, rather to produce or write the final piece or final essay. So it should come out of the draft phase. Now, you have sent this on the group and you expect comments. And this is what students would say in commenting on your thoughts about an introduction. You can see there, student A draft introduction revised. Okay. Now, a student can do that in the group. Remember, the topic is still the same, social maladies. Remember, this student has chosen teenage pregnancy. You saw that in the draft introduction, but he didn't choose the other. And the question expects that the student discuss two, but he chose one. What gap do you see there? Analysis of the topic is the gap that you see in the student's approach, right? And discuss these issues and illustrate how this part is not very clear in the student's introduction. If you read with me, you would have noticed that he writes historically on what this thing has been and how it sort of like originates teenage pregnancy. He gives you that historical background, which is quite, and he does it, the student does that briefly. It's not like going on and on and on and on that. No, he's like doing it briefly just to give a highlight of the history behind teenage pregnancy, which is quite a nice thing to do, but also defining. So he does have some good points there in the introduction, but it's not really addressing the theme sufficiently. All right. So you have that. So he's not illustrating. Remember, he did not illustrate how this can potentially affect development of South Africa. He did not do that. So now in the group participation, you revised the work of the student, the essay, rather the introduction of this. And this is where I want you to go. If you work with any topic, make sure that the student on the group understand the topic. Maybe you should agree on a topic and say, let's work on this topic together and see if it's peer review, okay? See if we can get it right, working on it. And then you comment, you post comment. Always try to have a checklist to see if your introductions are actually in accordance with the checklist. They address the points that are to be addressed in the checklist, right? The other thing in the revision is this. Look at the revision, the revised introduction. The revised reads thus: like any other country in the world, South Africa has social maladies such as illiteracy, HIV/AIDS, which fundamentally threatens the country's development. What is the topic? Social maladies threaten the country's development. So is that not a thesis statement? Does it not restate the topic? And does it not state the controlling idea? And the controlling idea is that it fundamentally threatens the country's development. So there's going to be a discussion on these social maladies, illiteracy and HIV/AIDS. So basically the suggestion was perhaps look at illiteracy and look at HIV/AIDS, but I would have loved that the suggestion be around teenage pregnancy, because the student has worked with teenage pregnancy. In fact, no, I am wrong. This student, having had comments on their draft, they decided to change. They decided to change and focus on illiteracy and HIV/AIDS. So they discarded teenage pregnancy altogether. And so that's what they would write now in their revised introduction. So they would say that. And so this is neatly crafted because you have social maladies, illiteracy is and HIV/AIDS, that draws from the topic. It draws rather on the topic itself, and which fundamentally threatens the country's development. So the students seems to say this is the line of argument that would be taken in the essay itself, that there is a threat, potential threat caused by this maladies, and that they fundamentally threaten the country's development. So that is the controlling idea, fundamental threat to the country's development. Fundamental threat is the controlling idea that would run through the essay itself. So yes, there is indeed a thesis statement. Well done. It's a tick because I see it, you know, and I can verify it. I see it, I can verify it. I put a tick and say, there it is. In the checklist, there is a there is a thesis statement. I put a tick there. Right, now, let's look at the next sentence. So every sentence included in the introduction has to be analyzed. After 26 years of democracy, South Africa still faces challenges of illiteracy, mostly in rural areas, and stigmatization around HIV/AIDS, HIV-positive residents. Wow. Don't you think what the student does next is to provide some form of background to illiteracy and background to some background on HIV? What background? Stigmatization. Okay, with regard to HIV. What background? Illiteracy, where? Rural areas. That's some background on, and briefly so, on these melodies that the student focuses on. Does the student define? Doesn't. All right. Provides brief background, which is quite good. And of course, you do that when you're looking as well at the word count, not the word count. You remember that you need to take into consideration the word limit. That's what I want to say, the word limit. So what does it do? I have something here typed in red. Illiteracy leads to underdevelopment and crime. Illiteracy leads to underdevelopment and crime, among others. Whilst stigmatization and possibility of death of HIV positives may cause social withdrawal, depopulation of an economically active generation. What does this do? Does this not summarize the body of the essay? What do I, can I predict the focus here of the essay from reading this? Remember the last point there that we read was a summary of ideas that the writer will focus on in the body of the essay. That's the very last one, if you remember from here, that a good introduction gives the reader information that summarizes the body of the essay. In other words, it mentions the points that the reader should expect to read about in the body of the essay. So that is the summary of the body of the essay right there in the introduction given by the student. So you are able to predict the essay focus, you know, as a reader. You have an idea where the essay is going. What are the key points that the essay will focus on? What are the key areas that the essay will focus on? So I see the student succeeding in that regard, because he says it leads to illiteracy. So there's going to be focus on illiteracy and how it impacts the country's development in the sense of it causing underdevelopment. That's the impact, and crime. That's the impact of illiteracy. So I expect a discussion on illiteracy so that the different facets of illiteracy are brought to the fore, and I understand what illiteracy does. And in bringing out to the fore all those facets, they would include, amongst others, how it impacts on the development of the country South Africa in the sense of it causing or leading to underdevelopment and crime. So that will be the impact of illiteracy on South Africa. So I'm expecting that this would be really elaborated in the, rather will be developed in more detail in the body of the essay. Right. What about the other social malady? While stigmatization and possibility of death of HIV positives may cause a social withdrawal and depopulation. Wow, look at this. On HIV/AIDS, there's going to be a discussion on HIV and AIDS. And the discussion would be around how it stigmatizes, how people stigmatize those who are positive, and how it can open a possibility of a person. Of course, during the currency of those days when HIV was rampant, the possibility of death was very high. But now it is no longer the same because there is advanced medicine that really can help people survive for or live for a very long time, even when they are positive. So at that time, this would have been relevant. I mean, 5 years ago, it will be very, very relevant. But it's still relevant today because we still have people who have this. So the discussion would really develop the idea of HIV, how it causes, how people can stigmatize, and that at some stage a person potentially can lose their lives to it, and how that in the process can depopulate economically active generation, you know, in the sense of these economically active people who are very skilled losing their lives without really optimally contributing toward the economic development of a country. Maybe these are people who are skilled, who would hear more about it. But I see this as really providing me with a very good summary of what to expect in the discussion in the body of the essay itself. Okay, so the student has discarded teenage pregnancy, has come up with something like this in the revised introduction. You see, revision is so important, or editing is important. When you revise, you change things, you know. The whole sentence is gone. A new one is put in its place. That's revision. That's revising. All right. We said this is a very active process. And when you edit, of course, you change, you check spelling, you do spelling checks. Of course, you look at the structure of the sentences and whether these are correctly structured, etc. So the student has done that, has decided that let me change and really put it this way. And he has done exactly that. And even the language choice or word choice is very good and accurate. And we really appreciate such an improvement. But it comes with practice. It cannot be done with just a draft and you leave it at that. As you revise, as you try, and you need to have that thing of saying, I really want to get it right. And I will, with the assistance of fellow, with peer assistance, I should get this right. Right? Do I have something else around the introduction? Because we really have to spend time on this. And by the way, this is with regard to expository writing, where we do not take a side, but we try to explore an idea so that the reader has a very balanced view of it and can see it from different perspectives, and then come up with perhaps a decision on based on the ideas, or rather based on the logic that the student has provided in their in exploring the ideas in the essay itself. All right. So, what do I have there? Okay, this is part of planning, micro planning. You know this. You can have a spider diagram. You can have something like that, or you could have a flow chart. You know, if it works for you, a flow chart of ideas that you'll focus on in different paragraphs. The choice is yours. If you look in your guide, you'll have different suggestions as to how you should plan and how you can write out your plan. But it is important that you plan, really. It is very, very important. Now, the student is focusing on that, is focusing on, okay, this is the topic analysis, I think, extent of a problem. So the student is going to explain the extent of the problem. The student is also looking into how that problem affects development of South Africa. So he's clarifying this to himself or herself as he is planning, like, how do I really put this plan together? What is the focus here? Okay, so he explains what illiteracy is and the extent of the problem of illiteracy and how it affects or its effect on development of South Africa. By doing that, they would be providing examples or evidence on how illiteracy is affecting development of South Africa. So they could spend time in the first paragraph doing that and looking into that, looking at it in that way. They explain the extent of the problem of illiteracy. Here you go, explain the end. Now, in explaining it, they can actually have a few keywords here that they could write, which would help them explain the extent of the problem here. And then also think of how, briefly, so maybe keywording, how it affects development of a part of country so that they wouldn't forget that this is how they're going to approach this paragraph on illiteracy and its effect or impact on the country's development. That's just a broad sort of way of looking at it from a planning point of view. That's how the student would do it. And they do the same with HIV. They could really go on and on and on. And the plan is theirs to work with and change if they like. But the ultimate goal is to say, I am following a plan. I have foundation. I mean, if you build a house, you really need to plan. Otherwise, it might collapse over a certain period of time. Right, then what is next? This is student B, and the topic is different here. All right. Now, student B, I think the student B here had chosen a topic. I think the student B was working with an assignment topic. It was a research assignment. Yes, this was research, because I see here, topic says, based on the above extract and some of the research that you have also conducted. There was an extract, and I do not have the extract here, but I think I can hunt and find that extract. And so it says further, and some of the research, so there was research expectation, that you have also conducted. Write an essay in which you discuss, so there's a discussion, so expository, 3 negative effects of using drugs for mood or behavior syndromes. So it's research based, because students will have time to research. So they discuss the negative effects of drugs for mood or behavior syndromes. So that's the discussion. Note that this is a cause and effect essay. Okay, so they're focusing on the causal factors, and they also focus on the effects of those factors on the person's health, perhaps, or on other areas that could be affected by these drugs, by the use of drugs or abuse of these drugs. So this is the introduction that the student has written, and this was not revised. This was just, it's not even. I think the student has written this and submitted this for marking. The use of mood-altering behavior drugs has become more prevalent and more relied in treating and dealing with mood disorders such as schizophrenia, compared to non-drug reliant methods, and he goes on and on and on. I think I've dwelled so much on the intro that the idea has emerged so far or thus far at this stage of the presentation. We still have time. We're going on. We have argumentative writing. Remember, we were looking into discussing and how to construct a discussion thesis statement, and also what should go into the introduction as such for an expository essay. That's where we started. But then what about argumentative essay? We did a comparative study of the two to look into the feature, or rather not features, but the distinguishing factors. And we discussed that previously, like how this one would be different. Argumentative essay writing would be different from expository essay writing. And so it really depends on what topic you would choose, but being exposed, because this is in your guide as well. You're exposed to this genre as well in your guide, where you are given a format of an argumentative essay, format of expository essay in your guide. These things are there. But what about argumentative writing? And I think we are not exploring really, we are focusing on a different topic now. And here is the sample. Still the same structure as given in the slide on writing introduction. Here is the topic, okay, focusing on body, what it takes to achieve so-called beauty by means of diet, exercise, and plastic surgery. In your opinion, there you go. Now we need your position on this. Your opinion: does society go too far in its obsession with weight and physical beauty? Right? An argumentative essay in which you demonstrate your stance, your take, your position on the topic. Is it going too far in its obsession? with beauty, with weight, and or not at all. There's no obsession whatsoever with weight and physical beauty in society. So it's yours to decide where you stand, but let's look at how the student, and this is student work, or maybe it was something that I did, I'm not sure, but either way, it's fine. It's just good for us to look at it. Look at this introduction. By the way, this one is different from the others because this is the student writing an introduction for an argumentative essay where the student has to take a side, okay? And what side is the student on? Regarding or with regard to the topic, society has gone too far in its obsession with weight and obsession. Do they agree or disagree? Okay, that should be clear in the thesis statement. So we said thesis statement consists of topic and a controlling idea. That's what we said, and it should be like that. If you write it, you must make sure that you make reference to the topic, or you sort of have the topic, and you do not rewrite the whole topic, students. You sort of like have to write a phrase that encapsulates the introduction, rather encapsulate the topic, you know. Here is how the student writes it. In my observation, there is no obsession. So does it take, what is the controlling idea? What is the writer's position? Controlling idea is the position. What is the writer's position that we should expect in the body of the essay? There is no obsession, so he's taking a side. And what side? The student disagrees with the topic that society has gone too far in its obsession with weight and beauty and physical beauty. He says, in my observation, there's no obsession with weight and physical beauty in society. That is an observation. And this weight and physical beauty is taken from the topic, is what the topic is about. It's about weight and physical beauty. And where does the student stand on this topic in writing in an argumentative essay? He says there's no obsession. He has taken a side. He has chosen a side, and he has taken a position or a stance, and he has to now say why. There's no why. He says there's no obsession whatsoever with weight and physical beauty in society. He has to do that. Now, looking at this, the term obsession. Now, oh, look what the student is doing. The term obsession in the context of the topic refers to the continual preoccupation to a troubling extent. Obsession, I never thought of it that way. And he's really getting it. He's getting it in defining it. Imagine having to define a keyword in an exam. It's very adventurous. And this was taken from a previous year exam paper. And we had to work with these topics as form of practice. And these are outputs that students would bring forth. The term obsession in the context of the topic refers to a continual preoccupation to a troubling extent with one's body weight, or rather with one's body weight and physical beauty. Right? Continual preoccupation to a troubling extent. Continuous, like, you know, day in, day out, preoccupied. That's obsession. Continually preoccupied, thinking about it. At every turn, you just take out a mirror from your handbag and you look. Every weekend, I have to really get something new, ready in terms of physical beauty. I must watch what I put into my body. And this is a continual preoccupation. It's not like once off, like in a week, you know, like, and it's natural. We really have to be looking after ourselves. We need to love ourselves. We need to love ourselves, you know. Who would love us if we don't love ourselves? We should. We should. There's nothing wrong with that. But the students seem to think differently. But he doesn't say that you shouldn't love yourself. We should love ourselves. The term obsession is the continual preoccupation to a troubling extent with one's body weight and physical. So it's defining. So his definition is provided. Definition is provided. The thesis statement is provided, and it's defining. All right, that's the choice. Will he do the background? Provide some background? Let's find out. Body consciousness is not an obsession, but a health concern about your physical look. Therefore, your dietary concern, your regular exercise, you visiting a local spa for body treat may yield significant health benefit for the young and old alike. Wow. Oh man, this is, it can't get any better than this. I mean, look at this. This student, from reading this, I get the idea that the student is going to really say in the part on weight, he is going to give us clarity. Let me remember, the student is writing an introduction for an argumentative essay. An introduction for an argumentative essay. And so how is he going to support the fact that, as he sees it, that there's no obsession? How is he going to argue this? He says, there's no obsession here. There's no obsession here. There's just no obsession here. Why? It's body consciousness. It's going to prove that these people, by running, by doing this, it's no obsession. There's just no obsession whatsoever. It's body consciousness. So that's the first argument that I see. What is the other argument that the student will really dwell on? He is going to say that you need to be concerned about your diet. You need to be concerned about what you put inside your body. All right? You need to be concerned about fitness, body fitness, regular exercise. And this is no obsession with beauty. It's what we should be concerned about as ordinary common people. Regular exercise, visiting a local spa is a human concern, and it's no obsession. So the student is going to encourage that we do this. He's going to explain that that in detail how these are a benefit. They are in no way an obsession. They are in no way a continual preoccupation to a troubling extent. No, it's normal. It's acceptable. It should be done. It should be encouraged. I think the student is going to speak on diet. It's going to speak on exercise, and he's going to say this is no obsession at all. It's no obsession with weight or physical beauty at all. When you do watch your weight, it doesn't mean you're obsessed. When you do a physical exercise like running or going to gym, when you're concerned about what you put inside, it's no obsession with weight and physical beauty. You know, these are things that should regularly be done by people. That's the position of the student in the essay. I hope you catch it. Information that summarizes the body of your essay and gives the reader a way to predict structure of the essay has been given successfully by the students here. So what has the student done? He has provided the thesis statement. He has also defined, very generous and of the student to really be doing this. And of course is a point to him, and also providing some bit of, or not even a bit, that summary that at least gives me as the reader an idea of what to expect in the body of the essay. His argument is going to be based on consciousness. Just being conscious of your body doesn't mean you're obsessed. It's just you being so alert what goes in and being alert of your weight, just not picking up more weight, and also, you know, giving yourself body treats, things that you need to have, and is of benefit to you, young or old. That's where the student is going in his argument to prove that this is no obsession. It's a normal thing for human beings to do. Of course, he's going to be doing that. I hope that becomes clearer to students, that you really have to start with the thesis statement, move on to defining concepts, and move on to really providing that summary of ideas. You know, what ideas are you going to use in the body of your essay to support your stance? Or what ideas are you, in the case of expository essay, what ideas are you going to use to develop the thesis statement further in the body of the essay? You see, that's what you're doing there. And I think this is very nice. It's well written by the student. Very, very nice. I really enjoyed reading this as well. Right, so that is with regard to a thesis statement for an argument or argumentative essay. All right, look at this example here. Most companies CEOs in South Africa, as part of the topic, are overpaid for a very substandard work. Overpaid for very substandard work is the position of the writer. He believes that the CEOs are really just overvalued. They shouldn't. What is taken from the topic is the CEOs in South Africa. What is his position on them? They are overpaid. This is just to show you how to write a thesis statement. It must have a topic in it, or a phrase taken from the topic, and this part is also very important. And in the case of argumentative essay, where does the writer stand with regard to the topic? What is the writer's stance on the topic? And this writer's stance is that they are just overpaid for work that is substandard. And obviously he's going to prove this in the body of the essay. So that's how you would write your thesis statement, students. Can we move to the body paragraphs? I think I have done it. Now, what is left is to do it in the group. We've done it last week, is to do it in the groups. What are we doing now? What we're doing now, we're moving to the next step. Remember, we need to do it one step at a time. And we will look into body paragraphs, how to write a body paragraph. And it must have a structure, just as an introduction has a structure. The structure of introduction is thesis statement. Either you do background or definition and summary of ideas that you will develop further in the body of the essay. Those are three key areas that you want to focus in the introduction. What about the body paragraphs? What is the structure of a body paragraph? What should you include in body paragraphs? Let's look at the paragraph, body paragraph or paragraph writing. What should go in the organization of the paragraph in the body of your essay? What do you start with? What do you use to develop the idea of the paragraph, and how do you do that? And how do you end the body paragraph? That's very key when you write expository essay or argumentative essay. You need to think about writing the body paragraphs. And I also, the way I'm presenting this, I'm doing a presentation of both expository and argumentative. I want to show how to do expository introduction and how to do argumentative introduction, how to do expository body paragraph, how to do argumentative paragraph. And in the process, I'm hoping you will pick the differences. Right, let's look at this. It says topic sentence. Obviously, this is how the body paragraph would be organized. It will usually it will begin with the main idea, called the topic sentence. You will find this, I think, also in your guide. Okay, this is what the paragraph is about, the main idea. It's called the topic sentence. So when I look, I want to see it right there at the beginning of the paragraph in the body of your essay. Okay, right, and then the rest of what you write in that paragraph, the rest of what follows the topic sentence, the rest of the other sentences, what do they do? What is their function? Their function is to develop. It is to clarify further. It is to support. Their function is to develop. What do you do in developing? Their function is to develop, in other words, to support, to support the topic sentence. How do you support the topic sentence? How do you support the main idea of the paragraph? You support it by first explaining it to make it clear to the reader. Second, by providing examples in support of the idea, or providing evidence in support of that idea. That's how you develop it. So you need to have that structure. Have I done enough support? Have I provided supporting details? Okay, you ask yourself that question when it comes to paragraph writing, body paragraph writing. Have I provided sufficient supporting details? Is what you would actually ask. So when we look at this, we find that we need to be very, now we're going to really pause and allow for students to really produce body paragraphs and want to analyze them using this. So once you have written your topic sentences for each paragraph, you have to develop each topic sentence into a logically developed paragraph. I like the word logically developed paragraph. Okay, well, perhaps we'll come to, maybe I should talk about it a bit. But once you've written your topic sentence, you see that is the organization of the paragraph, right? The body paragraph. It just says once you have written the topic sentence, you start with the topic sentence. Let's keep it simple because we want to get it right. We'll become complex later once we really getting into honors, masters. They will become because now we are experts. I mean, a presentation like this would man, that's just baby stuff. That's baby stuff. That's baby formula stuff. You want meaty stuff now. You are post-grad. So this would be like, I know, no, you won't even bother to, because already you have all of this. But that's how we do. We start crawling. After crawling, we stand and we really balance with objects around us. And after that, we fall and we stand up and we're growing in the process. Never forget that we're growing in the process. And before we realize, we are able to walk without holding on to objects. And we can walk. Although our steps are still jittery, we still walking and falling. Before we realize, we can now really walk without falling. Wow, later on, we can now run. Although not very far, but we can run. That's the growth development process. All right. And so there will be a time when you would say, man, this is just, and you would be like, I would do it differently. I would actually have much more than what is here. But to keep it simple at this stage, we say, can we do topic sentence and do it right? And what do we do once we have done that? Once we have written your topic sentence for each, okay, once you have written the topic sentence for the first body paragraph, what do? You develop each topic sentence. You develop each of them. And remember, in developing it, make sure that your supporting details are logical, very logical. In other words, they are sequenced and relevant to the main idea of the paragraph. All right. In other words, there is a flow in the supporting details. All right.
There is just a flow of ideas that support the main idea of the paragraph. It's just a flow. There's a flow, smooth flow. All right. And that's the idea of logical development of, and we want to apply it so that we see logic. Because if it's not, I mean, look, man, the thing about logic is that logical, of course, there's logic in terms of reasoning. But then the logic here is the arrangement here, is the arrangement of your ideas, arrangement of your supporting details. That's the perspective or lens through which we look at logic in terms of organization of paragraphs. Right now, you thinking of it like you should be able to lay down your points in a logical manner, in a step-by-step flow, and allow for that so that you do not interrupt it with something that doesn't belong there. Okay, you know, the lovely thing exercise to do is to get the sentences. What is this word that I'm looking for? Okay, it won't help, but it's fine. That's the logical development of the paragraph from topic sentence right up to the last sentence. Now, you develop your topic sentence by presenting supporting details, and these supporting details should be logically arranged in the paragraph. Can we apply this? Now, let's now look into the body paragraphs. Remember, you need to remember this. It has to have, and I'm not looking at the slide. My eyes are closed and I'm thinking, how do I write a body paragraph? Or it must have control. It must have a topic sentence or main idea. It must begin with that, and the rest of the sentences must be logically supporting the main idea. Okay, that's what I have. So I'm going to do that. So do I have a topic to work with? Let me think of a topic. Let me get a topic from here. Right, can we use this one, the easy one? Can we still try this? Let's stick with this one. The topic on your screen is the one you're going to write a body paragraph on. Yes, remember we are drafting. We've drafted the introduction. We're now drafting body paragraphs. So I want you to, we're doing expository writing, and when we're doing an exploration, we're exploring a topic, looking at different sides or both sides of it, and yes, but then you are responding to this topic given. Social maladies, discuss 2 of these issues, so you choose that one. It has been chosen for you. Remember, you are not arguing, you are discussing. We are doing expository body paragraph, expository essay body paragraph. That's what we're doing. We are not discussing, pardon me, we're not arguing, but we are discussing. So in your paragraph, you'll do exactly that. You discuss. Okay. Yes. So do it. Let's look at what Cherry has written this. Social maladies such as crimes, teenage pregnancy, illiteracy, and are affecting Namibia economic development. The economy of each country depends on a healthy, peaceful, and educated people. Okay, when teenagers get pregnant, they will be dropped. So it goes on, it says they will dropped off school. Okay, they will drop off school, which will lead to unemployment. And when the unemployment rate of the country increases, the crime will increase as well. When people are illiterate, they will not know how to use condoms and have unprotected sex, which would lead to HIV. Okay, Jerry, we hear you. Wow. Wow. Okay. What can I say? This paragraph, does it have a topic sentence or main idea? I want to start there. I want to see the main idea here, Jerry. Let me see. Social maladies such as crimes, teenage pregnancy, illiteracy, and HIV affecting Namibia's economic development. Jerry, I think what you have done, you are actually writing an introduction. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is working more like an introduction to me. The economy of each country depends on, yes, Jerry, this looks very much like an introduction. Right?
Oh, okay. I thought it's a body paragraph. I can see now that it's introduction. Okay, correct me.
Do you see that, Jerry?
Yes, I see that, but I thought that I made it broader to fit into body paragraph.
Yes.
The topic sentences. It's what I was trying to create at my first part.
In the first part. Now, when I look at it, thank you that you agree with me. When I look at it, I see that it has crime, it has teenage pregnancy, it has illiteracy, it has HIV, okay? And you have chosen the country Namibia. So,
yes.
It looks like it looks more like a thesis statement, really. If it were a body paragraph, it would read like this. It'll focus on one idea, okay? If it is crime, it will be crime only. If it's a teenage pregnancy, it will be teenage pregnancy only. And that one aspect you focus on, you will explain it, all right? You'll explain it here. You'll give examples as to how it's affecting the Namibia's development, but the focus will just be on that one aspect, not multiple in the same paragraph. Do you see? But this works very well as an introduction. Yes.
So the way that I'm understanding you, so on a body paragraph, so I have to stick on one topic that I've chosen from the topic statement, or what now? Because you say if I have to talk about the crimes, then I have to stick to the crimes.
Okay.
So I have to choose only one.
All right.
I need clarification.
You need clarity on that. Yeah, thank you for the question. All right. Remember what we do, we plan first, okay? We plan first, and in our plan, we decide. Okay, you've chosen the topic and you know what the topic expects you to do. Now, following that, you then plan. How am I going to, which ideas am I going to use in the paragraphs in the body of the essay? And so, on crime, there are different types of crime. There is corruption, there is gender-based violence, there is, you see, just on crime alone. So when you mention crime in the introduction, you are broad. Maybe in the body paragraphs, you could now start zooming into one form of crime and then explain it and explain to what extent that crime is a problem and Having done that, then you can show us how that crime, that form of crime, that type of crime is affecting Namibia's development. You see? Now, you did not include teenage pregnancy in the same paragraph because it will be messing up that paragraph on that type of crime. I'm just going to give you an example. When you are dealing with crime, discussing crime, you want to say, because crime is very broad, you want to say, okay, maybe I'm picking on corruption as one. And you write, okay, Namibia has a serious problem of corruption. Okay? A serious problem of corruption. So I know, oh, if you say Namibia has a serious problem of corruption, it means that's the main idea of that body paragraph. It's about corruption in Namibia. And then you can now explain how Namibia is facing a problem of corruption. In explaining, you then say, okay, you then say, a lot of people in high places do corruption. You could say, this includes so and so, government official, business people, and what have you. That's you now explaining corruption in Namibia, making clear how Namibia is faced, how the problem of corruption, what is the shape, what is the nature of the problem of corruption in Namibia. Now you've done that. Then what follows? Then you go on. This corruption or corruption in Namibia is such that it affects, or you could say it is such that it affects, yes, you could go on like that. It affects so many areas of business and of Namibia. And it also leads to poverty because there wouldn't be any job creation where there is corruption. You see, so I'm trying to think on my feet now, you know, I'm struggling to do it, but I'm trying to get somewhere. And so it's going to affect the development of the country because in a way, how would schools be built when people are stealing the money? How will roads be built when people are stealing the money? How will education from primary level to high level of education be supported if there is no money? Students won't get bursaries who deserve to be supported because they are not affording to, and students who are deserving are locked out of the system. So that's you now discussing corruption, and I'm just being so shallow in doing it. I'm just trying to drive a certain line around corruption. Then having done that, you would say not only is Namibia suffering under the yoke of corruption. Now that's the second paragraph in the body. It is also afflicted by gender-based violence, if you like. Maybe let me leave gender-based violence. It is also afflicted by violent crime, such as car hijackings. I'm just giving an example. And then you go on how that is affecting Namibia. You could say every second day we hear of so many cars being hijacked, you know, and this is just going on and on and on and on without end. And this is a problem because it creates an atmosphere which is not conducive for investments, because when people see that their lives could be ended in the streets of Namibia, they are not interested now in investing in Namibia, and thus this affects the development of the economy of Namibia. So I have created a situation where now I am able to discuss crime, and I'm very shallow in doing it now, from a point of view of corruption, from a point of view also of the other aspect that I've just looked into, violent crime. And so having done that, then I can move on to something else that relates to other issues, all right, and dwell on those issues as well. Does that make sense, Jerry? Nonhlanhla, please.
Yes, it makes sense. It makes sense. Thank you very much. I understand now.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for understanding. Let's get the next input from the students. Here is the next one. Princess, due to lack of proper infrastructure, socio-economic issues like HIV, crime, and teenage pregnancy continue to increase. The South African government cannot narrow these factors, which will lead to unemployment. 94% of youth has no jobs. That is one of the major causes of high pregnancy and crime. Sounds more to me like an introduction. Would you agree with me? And I will try to explain why I say it sounds more to me like an introduction. Let me explain. Where is it now? Princess. They say this was supposed to be the topic sentence, the main idea of the paragraph. Where does it start? It starts there and it ends here. So it reads, remember, this is what the paragraph is about in the body of your essay. It should have one idea. It should discuss one idea and one idea only. Let's find out. Due to lack of proper infrastructure, socio-economic issues like HIV, crime, and teenage pregnancy continue to increase. In fact, it ends here, not there. All right, now this is in the body, students, of the essay. Now, do you see? It sounds more to me like, it would fit in the introduction, but in the body, I need to focus on one aspect and discuss it and show how it affects the country's, South Africa's development. So in this case, I have, due to a lack of proper infrastructure, socio-economic issues like HIV, crime, and teenage pregnancy continue to increase. Now, I'll focus on just one and show how HIV is increasing, and so this would go crime and teenage pregnancy. They will be left for other paragraphs in the body. I'll focus on HIV only in this paragraph, and I will then show how it is increasing, and I will also give the statistics of the increase in HIV infections as part of me supporting the HIV increase. And my focus is strictly on HIV because it's in the body paragraph, and I would also give the numbers, if I like, just as examples to show the increase in HIV infection. And having done that, I'll then still in the same paragraph show the effects thereof of HIV on the economic development or economic life of South Africa. Maybe I could say people who were supposed to be very economically active are now affected and are no longer able to do as they should in terms of productivity because of health issues. You see, so it's affecting the country's development in that case. But I do not have all of them, trying to write everything in the same paragraph. But I look at the next line. The South African government cannot narrow the factors which will lead to unemployment. 94% of youth have no jobs. That is one of the problems. Sorry, I lost that one. Okay. Yes, yeah, back. 94% of youth have lost jobs. That is one of the major causes of high pregnancy, etc. But I wanted to convince you, Princess, to say that the first line here, the first sentence, would not satisfy the requirement of a topic sentence because it has multiple focus. You know, it should be narrowed down to one aspect and or one idea, and then you explain that idea here in the next sentences that follow the topic sentence by giving examples and then also including how HIV would affect the country's development. You see, so that's how you could actually explore it. But as it is very vast, it's very broad, it's really focused, it really has so many things in it. It is not. Of course, you are going to be able to see next time, Princess, an example of a body paragraph, and some of these things will become clearer when we start working on that. But thanks for your contribution, Princess. Okay, the next one is, all right, fine. Ritumeti, we're looking into yours now. Let's see. Right, teenage pregnancy is a fundamental threat to South Africa's development with regard to enforcing a delay in teenage finishing schools. I like that. Thank you, Ritumeti. It's just, you know, I like it, Ritumeti, because your focus is on teenage pregnancy in the topic sentence, and you do it very well in the sense that you do not have other ideas included. You're focusing on teenage pregnancy as a fundamental threat, and you're going to explain that hopefully. And in explaining it, you are actually saying, rather in providing details, supporting details that show that it is a fundamental threat. You say they cannot finish school. That's how you put it. And having to finish school already, having responsibilities, that's also leading them to unemployment. Now, teenage pregnancy creates joblessness, you know, or unemployability rate. It increases an unemployability rate in the country. That's the point you're making on the effect of teenage pregnancy on the country's development. So I'm seeing these points there. So it's very good. It's a very good start. Let's see again. All right, I've gone further and further up. Okay, and I see having to finish school already, having response, thus also leading to them taking on employment they find, but it also leads high number of depression. That's the effect of teenage pregnancy among young people or within the youth. Thank you. I think it does that. Thank you very much. In the exam, if you adopt this kind of approach in the exam, you are on the right track, or is Ritumezi rather. Thank you very much for that. I like it. It's good. It's going in the right direction. Excellent. It starts with the topic, and there is a very clear attempt at addressing, or rather at supporting the topic sentence that Ritumezi has started with. So yes, thank you for that. Let's look at Refilwe. If the country is not developing, it means less opportunities of job creation. Therefore, more people will commit crime. By crime, I mean unlawful or illegal act. Because of high crime rate in South Africa, economic growth will be affected. Refilwe, this sounds like a conclusion. All right. If the country is not developing, it means less opportunities of job creation. Let me just look at what I explain what I mean, Refilwe. Look at it up to, okay, in fact, it's just one sentence, but there's commas and stuff. But it doesn't have the main idea of the paragraph. What it does, this really, to me, it sums up the discussion that has already been done in the body of the essay. If a country is not developing, less opportunities for job creation, many people will commit crime, unlawful, illegal act, and South Africa's economic development would be affected. To me, it means in the body of your essay, Refilwe, you have written about crime, and so you are summing up crime in the concluding paragraph. Why I'm saying this is because crime, you have not explained crime as a problem in the country. Okay, let's assuming that you wanted this paragraph to be based on crime as the main idea of the paragraph. First, you did not explain the extent or how crime is a problem. Okay, wait. First, you did not explain the nature of crime in the country. How is crime in the country? How is crime taking place in the country? Okay, did not do that. And perhaps even in explaining its nature, give some few examples as well about crime in the country. And having done that, you then say how it then affects the crime affects the country's, South Africa's development, you know. But I think you do have an idea. But what it does, it has actually just slided towards conclusion in terms of style of writing. And Refilwe, you will see what I mean by this once we get to conclusion. This, in terms of style, it's more, you know, worded in a manner that concludes the argument that has been made in the body of the essay, Refilwe. Okay, and you will see that the links between this and conclusions once we get to conclusion. But I'm also hoping, Refilwe, in our next meeting, when I start to analyze, I will be analyzing, you know, the body paragraphs written by other students, and you will see the topic sentence, and you will see how the students, like one sentence after the other, they explain the topic sentence, they develop or they support the topic sentence with evidence to some in some instances, and you will see how it's all put together in our next meeting. So thank you for the input, though, Refilwe. This is one by Pauline. Pauline says, illiteracy is a malady standing in the way of development as unemployment rate is high, even when people of the country are illiterate as compared to countries with well-educated people. I think it's a very good start because I can get from here, this is just one topic sentence, but it has so much in it. What it does, it says illiteracy is the malady in the way of development of South Africa. I'll stop there, right? Then I would say, how is illiteracy a malady? Okay, now maybe I'll explain the nature of illiteracy in the country. I say a lot of people cannot read and write because lack of exposure to education, or because of the ignorance of the value of education, and this is affecting the country's development, because then when people are illiterate and not well educated, they are not employable, right? Because they have no skills that they could use in the work environment, and thus they are less and less productive. And if citizens are less productive, the country cannot grow or develop quickly through its own people or using its own people. So I think it needed just to be further revised, but I think you do have an idea there, Pauline, in terms of how this should be done. I do get a sense that you do have, and I think the future lessons would clarify that, will just fill in the gaps for you. And then I have Brenda, no, not Brenda, I have Katlego. Let's look at Katlego's contribution. Student, thanks for the contribution. So if you're still contributing something, stop, because I think what I have is sufficient. So let's see, corruption has immensely contributed to poor service delivery. Wow, thank you, Innocent. Oh, that's Innocent again. I remember Innocent from last meeting. Corruption has immensely contributed to poor service delivery. A tick. That's the topic sentence. That's the main idea. The focus is on corruption as a form of crime. Tenders are awarded to incompetent business that belong to relatives and friends. Whew, beautiful. Prices are inflated to convert some funds to personal use. Therefore, such businesses subsequently fail to meet the needs of society. Wow. Yeah, and you can go on it affects now this, because if they are not, they will not contribute to the revenue of the country or the taxes of the country. And if they are not contributing to the tax revenue services of the country, that is a missed opportunity, because now there's no money flowing into the government revenues. And if there's no money, then how can they then, so how can the country develop? Wow. But I just like the way this whole paragraph goes, you know. I think students, you will agree with me. It reads quite well. It flows quite nicely. It starts with the main, rather the main idea or the topic sentence, and he's explaining why corruption is contributing to poor service delivery. Why? These people who have tenders are incompetent. They do not know what they're doing, okay? Because they give it to relatives and friends. And again, they just charge big amounts, big sums of money. All right, and when they charge big sums of money, they do it for personal use, not for service delivery. And such businesses, they are bound to fail. And once they are bound to fail, it just doesn't help in the development of the country. I think this is beautifully done, beautifully written. Thank you, Innocent. It further clarifies the points that we started with. And by the way, we just touched on the aspects that need to be in the body paragraph, not quite comprehensively. In our next meeting, we will do it much more comprehensive, but that's beautiful, Innocent. That's what we want to see more and more happening in body paragraphs that students produce. Johannes is right. Johannes writes, parent being ashamed of speaking about sexual intercourse with their children. Okay. I assume this will be on teenage pregnancy. Parents are ashamed of speaking of sex with their children. So let's look at that. Parents assume that teenagers are innocent, and they once a parent can speak with their children, they can be surprised on the information teenagers already know about sex. Children are hard copies of their parents. So if parent will choose what is good or bad to teach their children, then their children will be hard copies of the street. Wow, Johannes. Hard copies. It's a tricky one, Johannes. How does it affect the country's development? I ask. And the main idea, of course, is teenage pregnancy, I believe. But it seems to me that you are writing more on the boundaries not being set around experimentation of young people, and the boundaries are not set for them, and therefore they just do not have guidance or guidelines, and as a result, their children, they can be surprised on the information teenagers already know. So teenagers know a lot more because they're not getting one-on-one discussions at home. Children are hard copies. Parents, if parents do not choose good or bad to teach their children, then the children. But it's another side of teenage pregnancy, but it's not coming out quite clearly linked with teenage pregnancy. It's more like on participating in sexual activities, but it's another side. If you explore the issue, the one side of teenage pregnancy is that there is no communication between parents and teenagers at home, and they will be surprised what their children already know, more than what they expect them to know, because they're learning out there. So that's another side of the idea of teenage pregnancy is the idea that there's breakdown in communication between parents and their children around issues of sex. They just keep that taboo, but children have a way of discovering for themselves what these things are. And so yeah, as a facet that you can include, or as a side of teenage pregnancy, as one of the things that you can include in explaining the one dimension of teenage pregnancy from the perspective of parents and children not having open discussions on these issues. All right, so I think yes, it would do that, but I would have loved that the first sentence would be that there is a high rate of teenage pregnancy, or there is a high prevalence of teenage pregnancy in society, then full stop. Then you look at one side of teenage pregnancy being breakdown or lack of communication, open communication between children, between parents and their children on these issues, and parents becoming shocked at what, maybe at a later, when they make discoveries later, shocked at what their own children would know about sex. And this then leaves children now to themselves experimenting with this, and it ends with them falling pregnant. You see, you have looked at it from that side, but I wanted that I would have loved that you start clearly with the main idea being teenage pregnancy. Looking at it from the side of lack of communication between parents as a cause of teenage pregnancy and their children as a cause of teenage pregnancy is very good start. And I would also have loved that you would explore how this then affects the development of the country. But thank you very much for that contribution. Much appreciated. I have read that with from the angle that I've looked into yours. I hope it makes sense to you. And there is something here. Oh yes, let's Katlego. South Africa is plagued by corruption taking place in procurement section within our finance department. Beautiful. Corruption in procurement. Good. The employees within procurement manage the purchasing of family planning supplies, not following procedures correctly, leading to dismantlement of funds. Good. This is you now explaining the melody of corruption in procurement processes. Thank you for that. Corruption affects, therefore, countries' development. People paying tax find themselves underdeveloped, under developmental threat as their tax increase every year. Wow, beautiful. The effect of corruption on tax increase hitting the pockets of other people because the government has to get money anyway, but then the money gets stolen through corrupt practices, and that leads to tax increase, affecting ordinary people who are not involved in these corrupt activities themselves, the innocent. Wow, beautifully made. I think it's a beautiful one, and I think also it does satisfy what a body paragraph needs to have. It starts quite well with the opening topic sentence, and it really goes on explaining it, and it ends nicely with how this affects the country's development. Beautiful, beautiful done there, Katlego. Then I think, do I have some more? Yes, crime remains, Dumelo, crime remains ever increasing, a present threat in South Africa. Beautiful, beautiful, well-crafted topic sentence. Crime remains an ever-present threat in South Africa. Beautiful, well done. Common crimes like murder, rape, robbery, armed robbery, carjacking, home invasion, property theft, smash and grab, ATM robbery. Beautiful, still in the same paragraph on crime. Armed robbery most prevalent in South Africa. Most often, I'll get this right. Most often, I've gone back to that level now. All right, most often, there you go. Armed robbery is the most prevalent major crime in South Africa, most often involving organized gangs with handguns and knives. Good. Teenage pregnancy still remains high in low and middle class environments. Tumelo. No. Leave teenage pregnancy out of it. Or unless I don't, let me see. That maybe I'm just reading ahead of myself. Let me look at it once again. Teenage pregnancy still remains high in low and middle class environments in South Africa. Social consequences such as perpetuating cycle of poverty, early school leaving, dropout, and adolescence. I think I'm hoping that it's good, but I'm hoping that you already have in mind that the two will not belong in the same paragraph. You do not have crime and teenage pregnancy in the same paragraph because they are not dealing with the same issue, because it disturbs the flow of the paragraph. I want to read crime up to the end of that paragraph. When you have teenage pregnancy, you can have it in a separate paragraph because it's not relating with crime. I hope you get it. But I think the idea is quite, which is happy way.
How do you separate them? Because the question said discuss two of these issues and illustrate how they potentially affect the development of a nation of your choice. So if Tumelo wrote about crime and teenage pregnancy, isn't he right, or Shira, isn't she right, because she discussed the two of the issues?
It should be in separate.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, Apiwe, thank you for your input. It should be in two. Remember, it's an essay. You need to start with, especially with your plan. Your plan will help you because you would say, under crime, what crimes am I going to write about? Of course, he outlines number of crimes and he lumped them in the same paragraph. And perhaps he just wants to show that there is this number of crimes in this type of crimes in South Africa. It's fine. And he can go on to then go into the effect of crime on the development of South Africa. That's it. That's the end of the paragraph on crime. Now is an essay. The second paragraph, maybe he wants to go now into the other issue of teenage pregnancy in a separate paragraph. It's a standalone paragraph, because when you do, it kills the flow of the paragraph if you include teenage pregnancy, because it's not related to crime. I hope you understand what I'm saying. It's not relating to what that paragraph is about. That paragraph is strictly about crime, and it should explore crime or discuss crime alone up to the end. Then once you're done with crime, you then can have now another idea or another social malady, which in this case, he's focusing on teenage pregnancy. And Tumelo, I think it's Tumelo, am I right? You focus on crime. Remember, there are different types of crime. Remember, you not only, the fact that you are writing on two ideas, which is crime and teenage pregnancy, it doesn't mean, Apiwe, that you will end with two paragraphs in the body, okay? Your planning will help you, because you would say, okay, now I'm choosing crime. Under crime, which types of crime am I going to write about? Okay, I would say, I'll write one paragraph in the body about corruption. I'll write another paragraph in the body on crime, but a different form of crime or type of crime. Maybe it is what? It is crime such as car hijacking or carjackings. Yes, and I end there with crime. Maybe I'm looking at these two types in the body of my essay, and I'm not doing so in the same paragraph. You know, I make a conscious decision that there will be a discussion of corruption only in one paragraph as a form of crime, and there would be a discussion on car hijackings only as another paragraph relating to crime. Because it's an essay, I need to be, in my planning, need to think, okay, what further points can I write on crime, or rather about crime, so that I'm not ending up lumping everything in the same paragraph simply because they relate to crime. And I end up with just one paragraph on crime and one paragraph on teenage pregnancy. Now I can do better by further dividing or classifying further dividing my paragraphs in such a way that I would show the reader that there's this type of crime, there's that type of crime. But you cannot do the same. You may not be able to do the same with teenage pregnancy. Teenage pregnancy is teenage pregnancy. So when you're writing on teenage pregnancy, yes, you can really focus on that in one paragraph and write about it, but we don't want to mix it with crime because they are unrelated, although they are social maladies both. So you want to write on teenage pregnancy in its separate paragraph, and as you do that, you really want to look at the issues related to teenage pregnancy, like Johannes did. Was it Johannes? I think it's Johannes, when he looked at the parent-child lack of communication around issues of reproductive issues, lack of discussion there between parents, leading to teenage pregnancies. That's one way of now exploring or discussing teenage pregnancy. And then later you would, in the same paragraph, then show how that teenage pregnancy as a social ill can then affect the country's development. I hope I make myself clear there. If you write like that in an essay, in one paragraph, you have everything there, you won't get it right. You want to plan and say, I have these keywords: one, crime, on crime, or about crime. What is it that I'm going to focus on? Crime, I further subdivide. In my subdivision, I have different types of crime, but I only need to maybe write on 2 or 3, depending on the number of words that I should use in the essay. If it's 500 words, I don't want to have so many different types of crime discussed when I have 500 number, and also taking into cognizance, I also have to do the other one, which is teenage pregnancy. So at the end, I am guided by the number of words, and also I'm guided by the fact that each paragraph in the body of my essay should start with its own main idea. And the main idea of that paragraph is the main idea for that paragraph, right? And it cannot be competing with another main idea in the same paragraph. You rather have another idea which is different from that one that you start with in a different or separate paragraph of its own, all right? And then you develop that idea further in that paragraph. In that way, there's separation. But I think you will see the point that I'm making, Apiwe, as we further get into body paragraphs. But this is a very good starting point, icebreakers such as students writing their own body paragraphs. I hope I've made myself clearer there in explaining this further.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Apiwe. And let's see the next one in closing. Okay, I've read this one. I've read this one also. Okay, so let's look at yours. Where is that? So I've lost yours. Okay, there it is. Okay, what does it say? Crime within our country is indeed a nightmare for society itself and for the country's economic development. Beautiful. He starts with the main idea of the paragraph, which is crime being a nightmare. Now he has to explain what he means by this. The most popular elements of crime here in South Africa is car hijacking. Good. This type of crime, as I mentioned, is likely to result in loss of life. Good. Both the car hijackers, receivers of that action. Good. Excuse me. That of course creates a negative image. Good. That's an effect on the economic development. That creates a negative effect. It creates a negative effect. That creates a negative effect for our country to our neighboring countries. Good. And even abroad, people will fear visiting our country. Good. As tourists. Wonderful. Which now harshly affect the tourism industry greatly. Good. Therefore, that will lead to loss of jobs for the workforce. How wonderful. Hope you agree with me. My sentiments concerning this paragraph is neatly written, well written, it's nicely structured. It really flows from start to end. It's about crime, and it goes on. But which particular crime is he focusing on? He is focusing on car hijacking leading to death and people now fearing to come, tourists fearing to come, and it affects the tourism sector. And as such, people lose jobs people losing jobs in that sector. And if people lose jobs, that's affecting the development of the country. Do you see how it goes? Yes, wonderful practice exercises that we are having here. All right, and then what is next? Pauline, I think I've read yours. And I really enjoyed it as well. Species of well done. Thank you. This is beautifully written. Negi, let's see yours. They keep running away. I don't know. Okay. Okay, should I stop there? Stop with Negis. Yes, crime activities are activities occurring amongst young people. One of the reasons is high rate of crime. Young people dropping out of school. Good. They turn to crime activities such as robbery, hijacking, quick money making. Good. South African economy is being affected as criminal activities can lead to high percentage of death and injuries suffered by victims. Good. This means South African government will spend millions of resources that will be needed by public hospitals to treat. Good. To treat these people who are victims and contain the violence. Investigators can lose interest investigating that crime. The economy is negatively affected. As such, communities will not develop as it should. This is weighing the country, delaying development as such. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much for this input. And Negi, lovely, lovely work. I like this. I like what I'm saying. Okay, those posted after understanding your clarification, they did well. Thank you for that. I think they did very well. I also agree with you. They did very well. You can read and see for yourself. This is beautiful. This is really beautiful feedback. Thank you, students. I think I enjoyed it. I hope you did too.